All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're decoding the fascinating psychology behind a very specific and honestly increasingly rare type of person. We're talking about those individuals who literally never post pictures of themselves on social media. We'll be looking at the completely invisible online profile, digging into the research to understand why some people actively choose to just opt out of the digital spotlight.
You probably know someone exactly like this, right? Think about that person in your life. You know the one. Absolutely no selfies, no birthday celebration posts, no massive vacation photo dumps, and zero life updates. In a world that constantly demands our attention and rewards it, their total online invisibility might seem a little strange, maybe even suspicious to some, like they're in the witness protection program or something. But as we'll see from the psychological data, this behavior isn't random at all. Actually, it tells us an incredible amount about how they operate.
So let's get into Section 1, the invisible online profile. And spoiler alert, they usually aren't just shy. No selfies, no birthday celebrations, no random updates about what they had for lunch. When we see an absolute lack of this typical online behavior, our brains often default to assuming, oh, they must be antisocial, or maybe they're just hiding from the world. But psychology suggests a completely different story. It actually reveals a tremendous amount about their emotional intelligence, their mindset, and, well, their underlying confidence. Instead of focusing on what they aren't doing, we really need to look at what this silence represents.
Which brings us to Section 2, high privacy and security, and how these individuals fiercely protect their mental space.
Psychologists note that people who rarely post pictures tend to be fiercely protective of their privacy. And this highlights a really fascinating contrast, external versus self-validation. See, they deeply value having control over what others see and think about them. So they aren't antisocial at all. They're simply relying on self-validation. While a massive chunk of the population is out there chasing a quick dopamine hit through likes and comments, external validation, these individuals, they just don't need to broadcast their life events to the world to feel good about them. It's actually a huge indicator of inner security.
And that brings us to a really cool psychological concept called self-concept clarity. Basically, research shows that people who share less online often possess a remarkably strong sense of exactly who they are. They know their values, they know their goals, and they know what truly matters to them. Because they have this crystal clear clarity, their happiness comes entirely from within. This effectively makes them immune to chasing fleeting internet trends or comparing their behind-the-scenes lives to the highly curated feeds of total strangers.
So the crucial takeaway here is that secure self-esteem just doesn't need attention to survive. Posting less is directly linked to this kind of emotional balance. They don't post selfies to prove their worth to an audience, simply because they already feel entirely complete. Psychologists point out that people with this level of emotional security are generally way less anxious, completely free from approval-seeking behaviors, and highly focused on actual, real-world goals instead of digital metrics.
Moving right along to Section 3, depth over digital show. We're looking at some seriously deep thinkers here.
This online silence is actually a major symptom of how they cognitively process the world around them. It's driven by what's called an internal locus of evaluation. Basically, this means they judge their own success, their appearance, and their self-worth entirely by their own internal standards, not by the ever-shifting opinions of a digital crowd. Because of this, they tend to be highly introspective. They think before they speak, and they strongly prefer deeply authentic face-to-face conversations over the superficial, fleeting interactions you'd usually find in a social media comment section.
Furthermore, these individuals keenly understand the whole digital illusion. And this brings us to social comparison theory. This is that psychological trap where people constantly measure their own worth against the absolute best, most highly filtered moments of other people's lives. The invisible online person? They inherently understand how easily social media distorts reality. So, by staying low-key, they are actively and intentionally protecting their mental health from that endless, toxic cycle of comparison.
Ultimately, I think it comes down to this perfect little phrase: they choose peace over performance. I absolutely love that takeaway. It perfectly summarizes their entire approach to the digital world. They simply refuse to perform their life for a digital audience, when they can, instead, cultivate genuine, quiet peace in their actual day-to-day reality.
Let's wrap things up with Section 4, the real confidence, and what true independence looks like online.
The reality behind all this silence really requires a total paradigm shift in how we view these people. The next time you notice a coworker, a friend, or a family member who literally never posts their pictures online, don't assume they're out of touch or just hiding. The psychology clearly outlines that they are likely far more emotionally grounded, incredibly self-aware, and possess a much stronger emotional intelligence than the average person who is just mindlessly scrolling through a feed.
Simply put, they don't need to be seen by the internet to feel seen. And that is the ultimate definition of real confidence. It's the ability to exist fully, completely, and joyfully without needing a digital footprint, a high like count, or an online audience to validate that existence.
So, as we finish up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really ponder.